right. Hello. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, Lloyd. Thanks for
Good,
having us.
good. Thank you. So this is the Web3 panel, a Web3 discussion for emerging markets and the governance that's going on in emerging markets. Right. So we're here today, and I've got Kavinda, Mercy, Charan. Thank you guys all for joining me. You guys are working in emerging markets, and you are a part of this Cardano governance experiment. So it's really great to see you guys today, and I appreciate you all being here. We're going to have a round of questions, but first, let's get a little bit about each of you. Please, Kavinda, tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do in the Cardano ecosystem.
Thanks for having us, Lloyd. So my name is Kavinda Karaparama. So I am the founder CEO of CoinCeylon. That's the first blockchain innovation company in Sri Lanka as well. So we started our journey back in 2021 with launching the first Cardano stake pool in Sri Lanka. And then moving on from there, we went and developed the first blockchain forum for Sri Lanka. We did a lot of firsts in the region, and we did the first CNFT collection that was based off of the Yaka CNFT masks, which is a cultural heritage project. And then moved on from there, we got into the education sector, where we've developed bite-sized video content for simplifying what blockchain technology is. And then we partnered up recently with Intersect to launch the first community hub in South Asia. So here we are.
A lot of good firsts.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to have you, Kavinda. Mercy, tell us a little bit about you and your experience in Cardano.
Thanks, Lloyd, and thanks for organizing this, having us here. My name is Mercy. Sometimes you see me as Fojo or as Teacher Manson. Fojo is my maiden name. Cardano. So I have been around since 2017. When I heard about Cardano and the possibilities, I realized that for Africa, especially for Sub-Saharan Africa, it was very important to create like a distribution channel, right? To make sure that Web3 is getting into the ground, boots on the ground. So that way, as well as out of Africa, small communities, they have a channel to know what's happening, especially in emerging technologies. Look at blockchain, you look at AI, you look at metaverse, and things are moving so fast. And like with Africa, there's a lot of endemic barriers, so it was very important to have that facilitation. Luckily, we had a great support with the Cardano community. They funded our first, effort, and since then we have had support from Catalyst as well. And, that has helped us to do quite a bit of stuff in terms of onboarding and also, creating these community hubs all over communities, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa. We are in about 9 countries so far, in 11 communities. And basically the whole thing is to make sure that we are facilitating that entry in and out. My work with WADA actually has led me into many exciting opportunities and work within Cardano, with the committees, currently with Intersect. Briefly now, I am a member of the board as well in an interim position, which is sort of rounding up. And, many numerous opportunities that I've had, but as always, my first love has been the work that we're doing with WADA, trying to create opportunity.
A true OG of the Cardano community. You've been around. Charan, tell us a little about you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Lloyd, for having us here, and it's great sitting in panel with Mercy. And I knew Mercy from almost like 2-3 years, big fan of her work, because I just started as a community member where I invested in ADA as a speculative person who wanted quick gains. That's how I got started, and slowly started getting into how stuff works, why is it important, and when I'm trying to get to know why there's a strong community feeling, what ADA is trying to achieve. I read through a lot of documents, and WADA and what they're achieving was one of it. So it had, I'm super happy that I'm in panel with them. Yeah. They did a great stuff. Post being a community member, understanding the philosophy behind Cardano, I wanted to build something on Cardano, which has a true connection to me, and I'm connected well in the film industry, and the film people were facing issues with how their films were monetized, how they were not able to make the fair revenue, and that's how we started a product company called Newcast. That's where most of my journey has been through. We focus on media ownership for the users, where users get true ownership of the media, not the IP rights, but like physical ownership in the digital realm, where they're not only renting products, they really own it. And in this journey, we released multiple films. We sold close to 14,000 film copies. We did live streams. We even sold a VADA film, which had a really strong impact in the ecosystem. It was a lot enjoyed by even other chain people also watched, because our product is multi-chain. And it has been a very good journey so far. And what I have observed in this journey is like, even though India being the second biggest developer base or Web3 developer base in the world and highest adopted, so India is the number one position in crypto holdings, in number of users holding. But not many people are aware about the opportunities in Cardano. They know Cardano, what Cardano is, because it's in the top since a while, but they don't know how flourishing the ecosystem is, and how many opportunities they have, multiple ways. So that's when I started getting involved even at the community level. Did my first summit event last year. That was my first event, the hosting event in my life. Like that was a good experience. From there, I understood we need more hackathons. We did hackathons in India, 6-city road tour hackathon. We had 2,000 people participating. A lot of people got onboarded. Catalyst is something very interesting for them. Close to 200 associate intersect members we onboarded. So it's been a journey. It has been super exciting, and see great value for Cardano to focus on emerging markets, and yeah, excited for the future as well.
Yeah, this is an incredible experience, right? And you know, your work there, I happen to be a holder of some of the Newcast products, because I definitely, the What a Dream Newcast product was one of the first ones I bought. So that's very cool to be a part of using your product. So we're here on the panel today to talk about governance, right? And how governance is happening in the emerging economies in Cardano. So let's talk first about the challenges. What are the barriers? What are the problems that you are seeing in each of your markets that we can do better in Cardano? Where are the barriers that we can remove, replace, knock down to make it better, so that this emerging markets emerge with strong governance?
So that's actually a very good question, because when it comes to emerging markets, so even if you take Sri Lanka, where I'm from, so that's in the South Asian market. So, and Mercy was talking on behalf of the African markets as well. So if you take the two markets, they are quite similar and different in many ways. When it comes to the challenges, when you look at the challenges, I would see three main pointers when it comes to the governance challenges. First one being the lack of awareness and education. So that has been one of the biggest challenges that we are currently tackling right now, so that people are more aware of what decentralized governance means, or how the governance structures are worked around the world. So that's one of the main ones that we are facing currently. And another one would be in terms of the technological issues that you might be facing. Certain regions might not be too technologically savvy, and so therefore you might not be able to include everybody in these processes. And another one, the third one I would think, is the regions are more used to centralized authority. That has been the norm in these regions, more or less. So when you go and pitch a decentralized governance model right away, it might be first met with a bit of skepticism, so that you'll be thinking, oh, how does this really work? So then I come back to the first pointer, where the education and awareness plays a huge role in that sense. So if you take the African market, so you would probably look at African markets and realize that in Africa, it's mostly about the financial inclusivity. So the DeFi sector is booming in Africa. I think Mercy would probably agree with me on that. But if you look at the Asian market, so if you look at Japan or Singapore or even Sri Lanka and the South Asian market, I think that's more or less focused on building these governance frameworks and also focusing on long-term utility products.
Okay, interesting. So Mercy, do you agree with Kavinda? Or is that what you're seeing in the African market? And also, is an enculturation issue there as well? Is it also a cultural issue where they need to understand what's available to them before they can adopt it?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Kavinda is saying in terms of the governance framework that people are used to. It's been a challenge. When you look at the Western world, in democracy, I mean, it's not perfect, we all know, but at least there are structures that work, right? When you come to the African market or the landscape, especially sub-Saharan Africa, and even to some extent, and in this way, maybe we differ a little bit from even the South Asian market, because their structures are not too bad. Because if some of you would remember, recently there's been a slew of coups in sub-Saharan Africa, and it's just because of the way that things are so chaotic, to the extent that now the people are looking for a strong man, one strong man, right? Because they just want somebody that can come in and take charge and so on and so forth. So that is one big issue. And then on top of that, we have some of the endemic barriers. For which reason, for instance, that WADA came into being, because there are a lot of things that is taken for granted, whether it's in Dubai, parts of the West, and so on and so forth. And that's electricity, that's internet. That sounds so basic, but then you get to sub-Saharan Africa, and those are things that you can't take for granted. So right off the bat, when we started, we started creating, and it's the problems that have, in a way, giving us the definition of what is important in terms of what we do. Because, getting those physical spaces whereby young people can go, at least they have some semblance of stability when it comes to electricity, internet, and then they start learning, like Kavinda said, right? Education is key. They start learning, and then once you start learning and you see what people are building in other parts of the world, then you also start innovating. So that's always, like in WADA, that's our three pillars, infrastructure, and that is, internet, electricity, spaces, education, and then innovation, right? So everything that Kavinda has said, spot on. These are the barriers, and it's good that we are looking at the barriers. I'm always keen to talk about the opportunities, and I know that we'll get there. So
we will, for sure. And Sharon, how about you? What do you see are the barriers in India, in your markets?
It is very much similar. Like, I agree with Kavindra and Mercy. There are similar barriers, but in India, we have a lot of mobile and internet adoption because of few big companies like Jio, which gave internet and mobile phones almost for free, and the whole India is on internet now. So that part of stuff is being fine, but the issue is like governance will, especially the multi-language issue which we face in India. It is a huge thing where we need products which can convert and make the governance side of ideas or proposal change into multi-language on spot, and that's one of the thing. And the other thing, it's not only comes to the emerging markets, even in the like maybe Western or any other places as well, which are well developed. I see a huge issue with the governance. People are not actively participating. How do we put it out? It's a lot of effort which takes into participating. And even though people see, I'm a community member, I'm into multiple groups, like investment groups, random, so many groups who talk about different stuff. But I'm the only one talking about constitution, sharing the constitution PDF, And even though they hold 300, 200K ADA, not like the smaller, they're not a smaller holder, they hold a big chunk of money, but they're not interested to get into it because it feels heavy. I think we should focus on creating more content which makes it feel lighter, not using the constitution word at all. I think when I send the PDF and it has a constitution in itself, they're not opening it. So we need to make it lighter, easy to consume content. Some incentivize driven mechanism where they get a reputation badge. It's not only finances. Where they can get badges. Like now you're level 3. Now you finish this part of the module. You're level 4. So this ranking system gets a pride in the people, get it running. So the goal is like do different types of stuff, but we want everyone to be educated because a educated voter is more important. I see this issue in my state, especially in the previous elections, where people were paid to vote, and they voted the worst leader where my state fell ranks by like 3-4 folds. The whole businesses. So I come from a Web 2 background. Like my parents have a 40 years old shrimp export business where we have 4 factories. We do all of our businesses in our state. But we recently opened, my parents do it, I don't get involved fully. They opened an ethanol factory in a different state just because of bad elections. Like that's where it started. They went into it. So people need to be educated, and to be educated, we need easy to consume content. So that's where, and it should be multilingual.
So you might want 5-minute or less content that about governance
Yes.
mattering. Is that what you're saying?
We need reels. We need governance reels.
That's right.
One of our partner companies working on such product. It's like any proposal could be a governance proposal or a catalyst proposal, which can have a 99 seconds reel from the proposer where there'll be a reel. So it's like TikTok now.
Sure.
You can watch the governance reel. It's connected to SanchoNet. So post watching the reel, if you right swipe it, it's a vote yes. If you left swipe, it's no. If you do it, abstain. So I think having such kind of products where it should be fun to consume. It should be like the dopamine thing where, and suddenly we have something to engage in the field.
That makes it interesting. That's a great segue now, because the next thing I wanted to ask about is how local regulations are affecting it. So let's start with you again, Sharon. How are local regulations in India affecting the adoption? Is that something that's hurting or helping?
Yeah, so for the new people, when we try to onboard skeptical people who are new and who are not adventurous to learn new stuff, it is hard because India's regulation constantly keeps changing, especially in the crypto field. But it's in a positive direction overall. The state where I live, Telangana, right now they're testing sandbox with real world assets for like flats and some assets. So they're doing sandboxing, they're testing, but it's not in the news. So there is being work done, like UPI, India's biggest financial payment system, which is worldwide popular and being adopted, has blockchain technology behind it. So, and now UP police forensics we are putting onto Cardano through Revolutech company. So there's being work done, but on the bigger media side, it's a very negative. So even if I say if I'm working in such industry, they'll see me, oh, it's weird to work there. But it's getting better as more people are holding, understanding crypto and all of these. So it's getting better, but yeah.
But it's getting there. So Mercy, it's a different scenario in sub-Saharan Africa right now.
Yeah, when it comes to local regulations, it's, the regulations could be there, but when it comes to enforcement, it's not a very, I would say, healthy ecosystem. Much like what Charan has said, sometimes what happens is that it changes very quickly. So for instance, Nigeria, as of today, right now, sitting here, I don't even remember whether they are pro or anti-crypto, right? Because
Right.
it changes that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, what makes Web3 blockchain have an advantage, especially in sort of chaotic environments like Sub-Saharan Africa, is that from the grassroots, regulations can be influenced. How do I say that? For instance, when we look at mobile money, right, from, M-Pesa, it started from East Africa. Now it's all over Sub-Saharan Africa. It was not by, it wasn't pushed by the government or anything like that. It was more sort of, there was a need and, adoption, and boom, it crashed regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So that is more what I'm hoping that we can achieve through Web3. Because once we are able to interact with each one of us peer-to-peer, that makes a lot of things very easy. If we're able to solve the problems of capital, we're able to solve the problem of, international transmission. We're able to solve the problem that is right now plaguing a lot of people in, especially Sub-Saharan Africa, and of course in South Asia and in LATAM and so on. And then the innovation happens. Solutions are being developed. It's very easy for governments to bow, for the regulation to chase the innovation.
Sure.
Another aspect of that also is that, for Sub-Saharan Africa, because of the needs there, what I'm hoping to see, to some extent, we've seen a little bit of that in Catalyst, in terms of the funding that they've, Catalyst has provided, for let's say, for WADA and its work. Now that we are moving into the age of Voltaire and we're going to get some more predictability, I'm hoping that, sometimes solving even the issue of education, because it's such a need for the government, they see what's happening, and then that is also, so it becomes a bottom-up, top-down influence, and, the future is looking very bright from where I'm sitting, whereby, right now, it's, we're hoping for the hockey stick approach. Right now it looks like things are very difficult, very tough. But very soon there will be that inflection point, and then we will see that fast adoption.
See that exponential growth.
Yeah,
So we have something of a mixed bag. We've got a bubbling up from the grassroots. Govinda, what does it look like in Sri Lanka?
The regulatory clarity, Lloyd, is a very interesting topic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And when you take Sri Lanka, the regulatory clarity right now, it's very experimental. So it would differ from what Sharon and Mercy would have mentioned. So in Sri Lanka right now, it's not properly regulated, I would say. So there is no proper regulatory clarity. However, that also gives us the room to experiment within the right reasons. That also that also makes sure that the innovation is not stifled. So that is a good point that is right now in the Sri Lankan ground level. But that also means, like, if you go to the historical roots of Sri Lanka as a country, we've been a country that has always had community-driven decision-making, much like the decentralized governance models that has happened way back in the past, before the centralized authorities and big corporations came into play. So that's the historical root of it. So because of that, the people still have that idea in their head. So that is a good point that we have as an advantage. We've also known as, in Sinhala we call it, the Peradiga Dhanyagare, or the granary of the East. So that is a name that we've had throughout the years, is because of this, the self-sufficient nature of the economy that we had, because of this, because we had the system where you'd be having something like a barter system. If you look at the basics of it, and if you go into the tokenized economies right now, which is coming with the blockchain, then you realize they have so much of similarities. And so how we actually frame this to the public of Sri Lanka is like, look at blockchain as a way that you can relate that this technology is something that evolved naturally. And that's how we've come here. So then they are more inclined to embrace it, because let's face it, blockchain concepts can be a little bit overwhelming. when it's explained to people who might not have the technical knowledge, or also if they don't have, especially for non-English speakers, as their first language.
Right.
So especially when you're pitching that to people who speak English and other languages, then this aspect comes out front. So in terms of regulatory clarity, there is a lot of room to play, but within reason, you just have to make sure that you build things the right way.
Right, absolutely. And so this is, I think we've even circled around this one a little bit. Like, what is the interplay between the traditional government and what you guys are building? So how do you see it? I like your example specifically because you guys have a hub, right? So an Intersect hub was built, for those that don't know, in Sri Lanka. It's the first one in Sri Lanka and the first one in Southeast Asia entirely. And so you had to negotiated some governmental structures in order to even build your hub, right? So how is that interplay working? How is it working for you to be able to have something that's a legal entity in Sri Lanka?
That's actually a good point, Lloyd. So when we started the hub in Sri Lanka, when we were leading up to it, the first pointer that we were looking at is coming back to the biggest challenge of governance, the lack of education and understanding of the technology part. So when we started the Intersect hub in Sri Lanka, one of the main key areas that we were focused was the education aspect, and then trying to understand that, which Charan basically mentioned, this is something that in India they faced with a lot of the time. When you mention blockchain, they think, oh, it's just cryptocurrency, that's it.
Right.
So then you come into the place like, look, cryptocurrency is an aspect that is in the blockchain life cycle, that's there, but that's not the only thing that it's been used for. But first of all, people need to understand the concepts behind it. So initially when we set up the hub in Sri Lanka, we, with CoinCeylon, when we set it up, we went on with a bang, to be honest. We went into the biggest industry expo that's happening in Sri Lanka, which has about 200,000 people coming in from different aspects, different areas of it. We set up a booth there for the Intersect CoinCeylon hub to educate about Cardano and how you can learn about this and how do you learn about blockchain governance and things like that. And so at the governance booth, we actually had a special guest, which was the governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, who visited the booth as well. We hosted him there. And he was also talking to us about what's going on in terms of the cryptocurrency industry, especially in Sri Lanka as well. And then he also understood the value of learning and making sure that people are aware that there are concepts that you can actually implement rather than just confining it to just cryptocurrency and then trading, and then you're getting stuck there.
Right.
So that was the starting point for us. And then from there, we moved on to, as you mentioned, the education aspect. We did a lot of workshops. I think within about a period of 4 months, we did about 13 different workshops and events, and I think we had a reach of close to about 150,000 people. And right now, the hub is, I think, over 400 members, and the second largest one in globally, right behind Japan.
Right behind Japan.
Yeah, so it actually gave a lot of viewpoints. We managed to have the Cardano Constitutional Workshop in Sri Lanka as well. And during that, this is something I've discussed with a lot of the members here at the summit this time as well. I think you were there for the Constitutional Convention workshop we had in Las Vegas.
Yes.
On part with another blockchain event.
Yep.
And during that, we had a lot of discussions. But this is something I always say, but the constitutional workshop we had in Sri Lanka had so much more feedback and really worthwhile ones that were coming in through the governance aspect. So this is something you usually see in systems that have issues or countries that usually have bad governance in some way. So then the people there usually understand the need for change, or how can these elements be improved. So when you're talking about the regulatory clarity, how do you pitch this to the people? How we pitch it in the sense of, look at this as something that has evolved a period of time, and it has come to make sure that it evolves existing legacy systems. It's not going to completely wipe it out and replace it, but it comes on as an evolution.
Excellent. And so, Mercy, on this topic, what is the interplay? Does the, I know you said earlier that regulation's already hard, so WADA has a hub as well that they've built the Intersect hub. What experiences did you have in trying to establish that hub?
I mean, it's when it comes to the hunger for opportunity among young people in sub-Saharan Africa, it has really worked to our advantage in terms of, Cardano, Catalyst, and in this case, Intersect, because people are looking for that opportunity. So regulation, it was almost a non-issue when it comes to the regulation, because these are things that can be done. The government will not say no, as long as people are willing to get involved. So I think that so far it's working great. And even though at this point we might be talking about governance, earlier on I was discussing with Sharon that it looks like it's governance, right? It looks like we are talking about regulations and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, much like what Kavinda said, when it comes to people in these emerging economies, they see that what they have don't work, right? In the West, people have their banks. It doesn't, it's not the best. I can get a mortgage. In sub-Saharan Africa, there's nothing like mortgage. There's nothing like a social security sort of, something to hold people when they lose their jobs. Right. High unemployment and so on and so forth. So there is a hunger to look for fresh opportunity. And that is currently, I think, that we are able to take advantage of. And that, we're hoping that Cardano will continue to take advantage of. Charles was really right when he said that, the frontier is Africa, emerging economies, and that's LATAM, South Asia, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of good things that is happening in sort of the West, in northern economies, in advanced countries, that, the beauty of blockchain is that it's very easy to come together and learn, from each other.
Absolutely.
Before even when we talk about WADA and some of the hubs that we have built, before, even within sub-Saharan Africa, the connections and the movements and the communications, traditionally is not very good. But I remember one of our hub leads, saying that, wow, because of Cardano, I'm able to, I'm in DRC, I'm connecting with all these people in Ghana, and it hadn't occurred to me. So all that I'm saying is that for me, it's always about the grassroots. It's always about how organic things are, how people are wanting to change their situation once they realize the opportunities. And, the sky is the limit in terms of, how we can get more people in, and it can be a win-win-win-win-win. That's what we always
more people, more transactions, right?
I always say that, more people, more transactions, and that's what we need. So it's a big opportunity, both for people on the ground, but also, for chains like Cardano, and our doors are open, as they say.
That's right. Yeah. So, Charan, it's a little different case in India. You have a business that you've actually opened in India, right? And is Newcast actually an Indian business? Is it operated under Indian law?
So Newcast is under Singapore
it's under
law.
Singapore law. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went outside of India in order to get it. So how is it interacting with your local government with running a Web3 business?
So in the local government, we have another partner company called Trivolve. It's registered in India. So what we see is like receiving payments or something in crypto will be a major hassle. But the blockchain adoption is being done. Like the Trivolve is getting involved in putting all the forensics data of UP state, which has close to 240 million population, onto Cardano. It's happening right now. The integrations are happening, and now they're even involved in Bihar. Also wants an education chain specific to as a partner chain. So the technology side of adoption is happening everywhere because India is very tech driven. Like a lot of we export a lot of IT. That's how
Yes.
it grows. It's a big IT export hub. So tech is adopted first. AI is booming. Any new technology except semiconductors or some kind of physical hardware, it's not that great. But the IT part is really great. So tech gets adopted, but the crypto aspect of it is still a hassle. But it's been great, especially in the government part of it. We have open tenders, like a government tender for blockchain integration. So
Oh, wow,
it's a
okay.
thing in India.
Yeah, so it's just kind of baked in now. It's just available, and there's jobs you can get to do the work. A little bit more challenging when it comes to a currency.
Yes.
Which, yeah. So let's look ahead, guys. Let's, what are the innovations? What are the changes? What's the next step? Now that we've kind of gone through what the challenges are, how you're interacting. What's your next steps, Kavinda? Where are you headed next to get more adoption?
Yeah. So with us, I think we will be focusing a lot more towards the education aspect. So right now, with the hub model that's in Sri Lanka, so the Intersect Coinsalon Sri Lanka hub, with the amount of members that we are having, and it's constantly growing, and we have a lot more calling from the members who are joining. They want to learn. They want to build things on Cardano. They want to find out more learning resources and things like that. So that has been our cornerstone, and that's what we've been focused on as well. And right before the summit, we actually had a workshop at one of the largest government universities in Sri Lanka, alongside their data science and artificial intelligence center, where more than close to about 100 students who are really smart and who's been building things on Web 2, but they're moving on to Web 3 now. So they want to learn, they want to find out what are the kind of change they want to build on, and what are the things that they can get out of it also in terms of building. And at the same time, it's not just about building, like what kind of change that you can create. It's just, like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter if you're just building something just because you want to put some blockchain technology behind it. But if you're building something and if you're creating some lasting change, that is where the focal point needs to be. And so I think, like what Charan mentioned, what they're doing with the government institutes and everything else, so that is an area I think you can focus on, because there's a lot of things you can do in terms of when it comes to transparency within reason, and also when it comes to adaptability and then having immutability of the records, but which you store on chain. And I think Cardano would probably be the best place to do that. And the fact that you're getting governance aspect onto this, and it's like you mentioned earlier at a different setting, I was there, you said this is an experiment, but the fact that it's going really well, and I know it will become successful, and by December when we put the Cardano constitution on chain and we pass it at the convention, this has never been done before on any level at this scale on any blockchain platform. So once we get this right, I think that will set it in stone for anybody who wants to follow, or if they want to build on it. This governance frameworks could be applied to states at a state level. So it doesn't need to be just businesses, or it doesn't need to be like universities or institutions. It could even go towards government levels where you get into the voting systems. It could be, like I mentioned, tenders, government tenders at the highest level. If you go there, I think these are the kind of things you can do. So that's what we are aiming at, to be able to build these people who want to actually create positive change in the world. We are giving them a platform to learn and come on board and build on it.
Right. Building a platform for them.
Yeah.
Mercy, where are we headed?
Yes.
What's next?
Where are we headed? I will pick it right off what Kavinda said in terms of in this case, we're being very specific, being in the Cardano ecosystem, governance is coming, Voltaire is here. In a way, we've had quite a lot of success, in terms of what Catalyst has been able to provide. We've done a lot of onboarding. It has been intermittent because it's not, it's very difficult to predict Catalyst funding.
Yes.
But, we've all done the best that we can with that. But with Cardano governance coming, once we get the constitution on chain and so on and so forth, we're going to bring in more voices. And as I said, for me, WADA has been my first love, and everything else that I've done, in terms of getting involved and getting sort of voices to the places that it needs to be, it has been because of, whether it's committees or whatever I've been. It's just because, I've tried to push. And right now, today the results came, and I'm very happy to be on the budget committee. I was telling Sharon that governance, at the end of the day, is proper allocation of resources. Like, we can talk and talk and talk, but if we are not decentralizing our resources for the build, for the innovation, for solutions to be created in the farthest corners of the world, we are just talking. It's just talk, right? Now that we are getting into Voltaire, this is the time that we really have the opportunity, the predictability in sort of the budget process and so on and so forth, to actually make sure that we are actually decentralizing. And we are decentralizing by pushing resources to the farthest corners of the world. There are a lot of practical ways that we are hoping that can be done. We are looking to, the work that, so right now I'm talking about from the Sub-Saharan African context. We are looking to some of the work that Kavinda has done, with the universities. I had a great chat with Nick from Intercept. He's also very interested in that. A lot of the work that Sharon has done, hackathons, purposeful endeavors that actually make people see what is in it for them. Right?
So moving past talk to action is your theme.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly. Actual work on the ground.
Work on the ground. Charan, what are the next steps for you, for Newcast, for spreading the joy of Cardano governance in India? What are your next steps?
Yeah, so I'll be spending a lot of my time on the governance for the next year. So this is something which intrigued or got me really excited after a long time. The whole governance process which I'm involved right now in Cardano. I was not that active in my own state governance except voting for the party which I support their ideologies, but I didn't knew how many levels and intricacies were there. Once I got involved into Cardano governance, this is something really exciting and I want to spend a lot of time there. As I spend more time, I'm understanding that educated governance is very important. So there's an old quote from Socrates, if you YouTube, it's there, where he mentions something, the synopsis, how I take it is that there should be a basic test which a voter should pass. And I have this ideology. I was talking with Sheldon, like, should we have a test in governance? And Sheldon, no, that's not democratic. Because I'm scared, because I come from a state where I know how a great politician can influence an audience with an uneducated audience. I come from such kind of a place. So that test was something on my mind, but Sheldon, no, they're like, that is not real democracy. But maybe not a test, but educating them, making it more easy would be one of my journey. Now I'll be spending, besides the Newcast product, I really love, because this is something which activates me. And how Kavindra was mentioning, the more I think about what we are doing in Cardano, which can be adopted in the state governments as well. So we are working on something like intra-DREP voting. So the DREPs, we delegate to the DREPs, right? And the DREPs take the decision. Where is the community decision? What is the community pulse? So we are trying to build a platform where the people who delegated to specific DREP can vote internally, and the DREP can take the decision, and what vote was done by DREP can be seen by the community. It's like more transparency, which can be adopted in Indian governance where we have MLAs, and below MLAs there are people. People are represented by MLAs, MPs are represented by MLS. It's our governance structure where people can do a intra governance voting on the MLA's direction. So it's been super like after a while, like AI, Bitcoin was something which I felt like that ADA, AI and the governance. This is so exciting for me. Like I just spend all my time on these aspects and super excited for the future.
So I'm not the only one who spends all of his time on governance. That's what you're telling me. Kavinda, Mercy, Charan, thank you guys so much for this talk today. I learned a lot. I appreciate all of you sharing your time, sharing your journeys with us. And to the room, thank you guys for paying attention. And please give these guys a round of applause. You guys have any questions for the panel here? We're happy to take questions. We've got about 10 more minutes in the room, so if you guys have any questions for the panel, feel free. Ace, I knew you wouldn't disappoint.
I want to pose a question. Like, do you think it's important to have a constitution with lots of fantastic rights and duties, or is the important part actually practicing and knowing about that constitution and knowing about the rights and duties? Like, how do we bridge that gap between how much we actually put in a constitution versus actually having that education? What are my rights and duties? You all have talked about education, but very specifically on the constitution and its rights and duties, like, how do we approach that? Because I personally think that it doesn't matter to have a fantastic constitution if no people are using it and knowing about it, what it actually entails.
Go ahead, guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much for the question. So I think we need to first understand what good governance is. So if you look at good governance, for any type of good governance, you need to have, there's three main pillars, right? You have, for decentralized governance, so you have to have some form of decentralization. And then you have to have an institution, some form of institutionalization, and a constitution. So if somebody tells you you can do it without one or the other, they're probably lying to you, because it's going to be a chicken and wolf story. So the wolves will eat the chicken, and that will be the end of it. But so the constitution is in play to make sure that the minorities' voices are protected, so that there are certain things, like you very rightly mentioned. Doesn't matter if it's a fantastic constitution if it doesn't do that. So of course it's not going to be completely 100% foolproof, perfect constitution. But I think the reason why it needs to be there is to make sure that the minorities' voices are protected and certain guardrails are in place, that it doesn't completely go derailed. As I would not like to name drop right now, but as you probably know, it has a lot of blockchain networks have tried this at different scales, but has not been completely successful because of this reason. So I believe the fact that we have these constitutional workshops, around 63.
63.
Yeah, so 63 workshops around the world, where you get the communities from different countries. I think about 50-ish countries altogether.
Yeah, 50 countries.
And all the input that goes into this, and also given them a reason to go there and voice their concerns and be like, look, we don't really like this. This needs to change this way. So everybody gets an input. Perhaps it might not be completely said in the final constitution, but like you said, although the constitution could be perfect, if it's not practiced in that sense, it wouldn't really matter. So if the basic stuff are covered to the sense where the minorities' voices are protected, I think that's where the constitution importance lies.
I also have a question, actually, for all of you, because, I mean, the governance model on Cardano is stake-based, right? It's a plutocratic model, if you want to break it down. And it can be argued that this model kind of favors the wealthy, right? The one who holds a lot of data. I mean, that's what it is, plutocratic. But how does this affect now, like emerging economies, emerging markets, right, where people do not hold maybe so much data? Now they contribute, right, to this governance transformation. We have workshops, which I think is great. But then, once we come to this actual governing of the protocol, they might not have so much influence. I guess you all thought about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Mercy this would be right up your alley. This is a good one for you. We've talked about this topic, so.
I've spent some time on the civics committee together with Lloyd and Nico as well. And obviously this is a big issue because when we look at people in some of our economies, emerging economies, they don't have such a big stake. We do need to start somewhere because Cardano I would say it was an improvement from proof of work Bitcoin. But obviously, proof of stake is also not perfect. And as we are going on this journey, I know that we all know that we will be, looking at other options as well. But right now, what really is on its way to working. Obviously, we recently had the elections, which wasn't stake-based, so that's amazing. For that reason, people like Avinda and so on. They are getting on the board and they're going to have a lot of influence that way. But even more importantly, and that is why earlier I was talking about actually decentralizing resources, right? Because that is what will make our proof of stake strong. If we are employing people from deprived areas all over the world, we are resourcing them and employing them, we are actually strengthening the protocol in the sense that stake is now finding its way from sort of, Japan and the richer countries into actual, sort of into Africa and places like that, and people are able to improve their staking and so on and so forth. That is, I believe, very important, and that is where we need to put our feet where our mouth is and make sure that we are actually putting resources deep down into the farthest corners of the world. That is something that is very important to me.
Wonderful.
I wanted to add on, I totally agree with you, Mercy, but some part of my takes what I feel like I thought about it a lot because Project Catalyst, that's where I'm involved as a product company, as a community member. I've seen a lot how whales can influence or big up ADA holders. But in the end, I was just thinking like, what is the solution? I don't see a singular solution. I think because one of our dev participated in open dev committee voting, where to be part of the committee, there were 4 members selected, so you needed 160 votes, and 160 votes is equal to $1,600, which is something very bad. Like if we have a governance on individual based, we need more people participating. If it's less people participating with a $10 entry, it's not something. Luckily, from what I have seen, the results, I'm very happy. The best people are in, so there's no manipulation. But if someone could do it, it's not something that expensive to attack the governance. But when we go stake based, smaller voices are being like they're not being heard, but there is a higher probability that people don't hurt their own bags, where they bag, because it's an incentive driven world, so they don't want to spoil the network because that's where their stake is. But like I think about it a lot. It's been part of different Catalyst. I think is a really great example. And one of the thing which we did a hackathon for Emergo in Japan, where we introduced a reputation-based system. I don't think it is also the right solution, but it is something which can be explored in the governance where a reputation needs to be built for that wallet to get some weighted voting. So even if it is a less ADA, if you are level 10 reputation, you get a 5x boost in the vote, or like something which is, I don't think we have its own set of problems. Everything has it, but we should explore more. And $1,600 is not something which I didn't like. Yeah, that's the
Exactly.
thing.
And thankfully with Intersect, there is some, there's some processes in place to help make sure that there's a person behind each vote, so that we've got some support. But you're absolutely right. We need to expand that base, get as many people as we can in there. Well, guys, we have run out of time. This has been an incredible panel. Thank you again. We want a question of the Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you.
And thanks
Thank you so
everyone
much,
for
Abby. Thank you,
coming to participate.
Thank you.
Shut Lawrence's questions down.
You can ask me privately.
Centralized process that we have in the regional regulations, your variations. What do you think the impact is?
Sorry,
So we have a centralized constitution.
Yep.
Based on the American process.
Yep.
But based on your regional regulations and changes, do you think there's any changes we may need to make to the regulation, the constitution? Do we think
Should we change the Cardano Constitution?
So the good thing, and I think Kavinda alluded to it, the fact that people are already talking. Because when you look at the workshops that have been held all over the world, the emerging economies actually have a lot of numbers. So they've had a chance to actually input into the constitution. And then because we have this system of not just DREPs, which is state-based, but also the Constitutional Committee, who are guided by this constitution that a lot of people from all over the world have had a chance to input into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great safeguard right off the bat. Obviously, we are not going to get it all right, right off the bat. Lloyd, this morning you said that during this period, we need to extend extra grace to one another.
Yep.
I totally agree. But at least having these foundations means that we are on a path. We make
Right.
mistakes, but
So having gotten the input, the communities, maybe they feel a little safer with the Constitution because they've had the input? Is that a safe balance? Do your communities feel safer? Do you,
I think that
with
the other
this?
thing that you could look at it is the localization of it.
Okay.
Because someone might come and say, look, the constitution was there, we didn't understand it.
Right.
So I think that's one of the main things that we did was localizing this constitution to so many different languages as well. So I think even in Japan, they made it to Japanese, and for Sri Lanka, we made it into Sinhala as well.
Yeah.
So we had that at the constitutional workshop so that we would get inputs from all of the people there in different languages too, so that everybody feels included, so that they would not be able to later on come and say, look, we never got a chance.
We didn't get a chance.
Of course, it will come. Eventually, there will be amendments coming into the Constitution at some point.
Yeah.
However, I think the idea behind it is the fact that the localization has a huge impact on to what Mercy said as well.
All right.
It might not be perfect for any of us, but it will be alive for all of us.
Yes.
There you go. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
the
everyone.
questions too. Thank you so much.